Section 84 feels to me like a really important section in our world today. It's not especially beautiful, um, it, but I think the meaning of it is important. Tennyson describes a really in-depth, a really vivid scene or several scenes that he imagines if Hallam had lived, what life would have been like. He describes the glow, the kind of the glow that these images have in his mind. Tennyson's sister was engaged to marry Hallam, and when Hallam got back from Europe, they would have gotten married, but Hallam died. And so Tennyson is envisioning the children, his nieces and nephews that would have come to this marriage, and having one sit on his knee, babbling and calling him uncle. Let's see, line 15, made cypress of her orange flower. The editor's notes here, always helpful. Cypress is a symbol of mourning or sadness, and the orange blossom is a symbol of bride. So death took that orange flower and turned it into a cypress. But this really vivid imagination, he sees himself and Hallam having these long, lengthy discussions and debates and graceful jests and going for walks together. He puts a lot of energy into this, what you could call a fantasy or a daydream or a fancy might have been his term. Lots of detail is pictured. And then the effort required to put it into verse. This isn't a fleeting thought. This is something he's poured himself into for hours and hours. And then here's the key to me, the important little twist at the end. Let's see, the second to last stanza, so line 41, we're still in the fantasy. Arrive at last the blessed goal. He that died in Holy Land, that's Jesus, would reach us out the shining hand and take us as a single soul. So he's imagining Jesus bringing him and Hallam together, and uniting them, never to be separated again. Here's the kicker. The last stanza, line 45. What reed was that on which I leant? Ah, backward fancy, wherefore wake the old bitterness again and break the low beginnings of content? So the fantasy is done now. He's back in reality, and he realizes this whole house of cards I built up for myself was just a flimsy little reed, and I leaned on it, and now it's snapped and I've fallen backwards. The old bitterness is as bitter and cold as ever, and he can recognize there were the low beginnings of content. He was starting to be okay with things, but then he spent so much energy contemplating, daydreaming, fantasizing, and when he's confronted with the truth, with reality, his fantasy breaks down, and reality is all that much harder for him to bear. This is a really important insight, and it's one that I hope I can learn as well. It reminds me of, this video is going to be long, but this is a long section, plus I have several thoughts about it. It reminds me of Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl is a man who spent time in one of the concentration camps during World War II when the Nazis were imprisoning Jews. Viktor Frankl was a Jewish physician, put in a concentration camp, lived there, survived, was freed at the end of World War II, and he wrote a book about his experiences. It's a very good book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he describes his experiences. He talks about a couple different places in the book. Some of the other prisoners would go through they would create this very elaborate, very detailed, very specific scenes in their mind of eating these meals. They would taste the food, they'd smell the food, they would envision it all out in front of them, and they'd go through this scenario charade of consuming this food. And they felt relief by it or helped by it. Viktor Frankl has these interesting, important thoughts. In my paper copy, this one is on page 30, the first quote, and the second quote is on page 71. I'm reading off my screen here because I've typed them out. I don't have my paper copy with me. Okay, Viktor Frankl on imagination to ease suffering. I always regarded the discussions about food as dangerous. Is it not wrong to provoke the organism with such detailed and affective pictures of delicacies when it has somehow managed to adapt itself to extremely small rations and low calories? Though it may afford momentary psychological relief, it is an illusion which physiologically surely must not be without danger. So as a physician, he's just thinking, this whiplash can't be good for the physical body, the physiologic processes. And then another thought on this same topic. This is now page 71. We've already spoken of the tendency there was to look into the past to help make the present, with all its horrors, less real. But in robbing the present of its reality, there lay a certain danger. It became easy to overlook the opportunities to make something positive of camp life, opportunities which really did exist. And are we still recording? Yes. So Viktor Frankl says this intense imaginative experience, it numbed them to the real pain they were going through, but it also dulled them to opportunities to make reality better. And you can kind of hear Tennyson saying the same thing in this section 84. He had made a little progress. He was getting a little bit of contentment, and then after his fantasy went up in smoke, all the pangs and pains and despair were just as raw as ever. So to me, this question is, what do we do when reality is too much, too painful, too heavy? T.S. Eliot in his poem Burnt Norton, there's a line, a little bird is talking to the poet. I think they're in a rose garden, and the bird says, "Humankind cannot bear very much reality." And I certainly feel that way sometimes. Sometimes the day, just the reality, the moment is too heavy. What do we do with that? A little later, T.S. Eliot in that same poem has the line that says something like, "We are distracted from distraction by distraction." Just this idea that we're always escaping, we're trying to get deeper and deeper into distraction, and it's never enough. There's never enough distraction to be to cope with reality. You've got to just square your shoulders and be here. I think we all do things to help us escape, and I don't know if there's any other way to live, but I hope that the things we do to escape make us more prepared, more capable, more competent, more aware, and not less aware. Poetry is an escape. That might be part of what has led me to spend so much time with this poem and to make these videos. Is it's something to help me process reality. And certainly for Tennyson, all these walks that he went on, thinking about his grief and writing about his grief, that was certainly an escape, a way to help him digest the pain of what he was going through. So poetry is one escape. Reading books, going for walks, running, bike rides, exercises, service, getting together with other people, singing, all these wonderful things. I hope that, anyway, this section 84 to me is a warning that's really timely. What are we doing? What is your escape? What is my escape? Something to think about. Okay, this is a long section. I will read it. 84. When I contemplate all alone the life that had been thine below, and fix my thoughts on all the glow to which thy crescent would have grown, I see thee sitting crowned with good, a central warmth diffusing bliss, in glance and smile and clasp and kiss, on all the branches of thy blood. Thy blood, my friend, and partly mine, for now the day was drawing on, when thou shouldst link thy life with one of mine own house, and boys of thine had babbled uncle on my knee, but that remorseless iron hour made cypress of her orange flower, despair of hope, and earth of thee. I seem to meet their least desire, to clasp their cheeks, to call them mine. I see their unborn faces shine beside the never-lighted fire. I see myself an honored guest, thy partner in the flowery walk of letters, genial table talk, or deep dispute and graceful jest. While now thy prosperous labor fills the lips of men with honest praise, and sun by sun the happy days descend below the golden hills, with promise of a morn as fair, and all the train of bounteous hours conduct thy paths of growing powers to reverence and the silver hair, till slowly worn her earthly robe, her lavish mission richly wrought, leaving great legacies of thought, thy spirit should fail from off the globe. What time mine own might also flee, as linked with thine in love and fate, and hovering o'er the dolorous strait, to the other shore involved in thee. Arrive at last the blessed goal, and he that died in Holy Land would reach us out the shining hand, and take us as a single soul. What reed was that on which I leant? Ah, backward fancy, wherefore wake the old bitterness again and break the low beginnings of content?